Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, do you have a higher calling? And I'm not talking religious right now. I'm talking about, do you have more that you need to do? We'll be talking to our leading national expert next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
So I remember leaving TV news. I had climbed to the top of that little hill I was climbing called local TV news, and I looked around and I said, is this all there is? And I reinvented myself. And I think that describes a lot of people watching the show right now. You know, I know a bunch of lawyers who hate law and doctors who hate medicine, and they're thinking about, okay, is this all there is? So if you're at that point in your life, you need to listen to my next guest, Artemis Limpert. She is a leadership development coach and speaker and longtime friend. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, this is just a total treat. Thank you.
Well, so you and I just got reconnected, and I know we're going to be besties. But your wisdom is so powerful just because you have lived a joyful life, and you've helped so many people. Tell a little bit about your journey.
Well, my background was, first of all, as a hairdresser, and then I went back and got a business degree. And after working 12 years in business, I knew there was more that I wanted, and I gave my boss 8 months' notice, and then began becoming an entrepreneur. And that journey I thought would be just skills on the outside, and the thing that was so rich about it, and I loved and hated it for the same reason, it challenged me at levels that I wasn't expecting. And I loved it for that, and I was scared of it for that. And I didn't realize that after walking into that journey and just not being afraid of mastery and the willingness to be bad enough for long enough to get good,
yes,
would open up a lot of doors to help others who were at that moment, like you said, like there's something else. I was trying to say to people, if you're at that place where you're feeling called somewhere else and you stay, are you seeing diminishing returns? And if people say yes, I say, well, then it's your time to leap.
And Artemis, you have the heart of a coach, because you and I were visiting before the show with some folks in my office, and I just saw you instantly kind of go into coach mode. That gives you joy, doesn't it?
You know, I appreciate that it doesn't have to be as hard as it feels a lot of times when you're alone. Yeah, I really appreciate that in a big way. So if there's any time, and I've loved the people like yourself, because I remember when you and I met and we got connected, I love when people reach in and just sort of say, hey, you know, here's a couple thoughts. And so I feel like that generosity of spirit that's been given to me, and then I love to pass it forward, because it doesn't have to be as tough. You know, there's some work that's worth doing, there's other work that it just doesn't have to be that hard.
Yes, and I have to brag on Artemis. She's an amazing speaker. We're kind of social distancing these days, so she's not doing as many speeches as she would normally do. But let's show one little clip.
That's the question. The question is not, will I work hard? The question is, what I work hard at, will it reward me with the life I dream of?
Entonces, la pregunta real que ustedes se deben hacer siempre es si yo...
Wow. And so you were telling me that's Peru.
That was, yeah.
Now, when you're called to speak, what are your favorite topics?
You know, a lot of times the topic is mindset, and what it is. Like I said, there's the mastery of the hard skills in whatever you're doing, but the mindset is really a large part of the willingness to actually do whatever the mastery is that's necessary. So a lot of times people call me in for mindset at a lot of different levels, like Artemis. They're afraid or they're stuck or whatever, and it's that larger perspective where people are excited about the journey of excellence, which can, which it can be challenging and is so worthwhile.
And you were telling me that you actually lived in Peru for 4 months.
I did.
How is does your message kind of transcend cultures?
You know, yes, because I don't care where we are in the world, the journey of really allowing yourself, I keep asking people in today's world, you know, not what do you think you can do, but what are you really wanting to do? And then are you willing to come up behind yourself and support yourself in a way where you can actually go after that thing that's bigger than you can do alone?
Yes.
Are you willing? So
Well,
that's true everywhere.
And Artemis, I think your timing is perfect because, you know, my generation was, you know, go to work at a great employer and spend 40 years and get a gold watch and keep your nose clean and sorry kid, life is not a bowl of cherries. But this next generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they want purpose, they want meaning.
Yes.
Speak to that.
Well, it's interesting because I think this last, you know, what we thought might be the next 10 years got so compressed so much closer because of the last 10 months. And all of a sudden I keep asking people, are you noticing now that you know how to work from home and you know how to purchase online, but the question is, do you know how to make money online? And the biggest trends right now, the Gen Z and the millennials kind of know it, the Gen Z even more than the millennials, which is you need to discover your own voice and your own brand and figure out how to get online, which so leads to the brilliance of what you've been doing for the last 12 years that I just told Jeff, I don't know if you realize you like are at the tip of what everybody is really needing, which is how do I get my voice out there and how do I discover what my voice is and how do I get that out?
Well, you're too kind. If somebody's
So
watching,
true though.
So if somebody's watching this, how does somebody know when they need an Artemis in their life?
You know, I think when people normally call me or when they're afraid to call me and someone will refer them, like the last couple of days, a lot of people say, Artemis, can this person have 15 minutes? And then they'll know is where are you really trying to get and what is keeping you from going there? And a lot of times the feeling that people have is that I need to know how or I need to get ready. And a lot of it, when you're trusting your intuition, it's a jump into that future. Like you know inside of yourself that there's a person that you are not yet, and you have to be willing to figure out how to get from where you are there. And that's when normally people call me. It's like, can I? And how would I? And can I think in possibility? You know, that willingness to go there.
And one of the things I'll say about Artemis is she's such a kind coach. And so as somebody's kind of looking at this broadcast right now saying, wow, do I need an Artemis in my life? One of the things that your gift is you do it without judgment. You know, no matter what walk they've had, you say, okay, I'm going to meet you where you are.
Yeah, it's true, and part of that is just the fact that people assume when you're meeting somebody that, you know, this is where you started. And somebody said to me the other day, you know, Artemis, they wrote me in a comment, you know, hey, you know, if you don't have finances and you don't have influence and you don't have this, you know, the reality matters. And so I wrote back and said, you know, it didn't start here, and the reason why these insights we were talking earlier, you know. The stronger the wind, the stronger the timber. You don't have insight, you don't have wisdom, you can't cut through for people unless you've walked it out. And so one of the things people always come to me for is the truth. Like they know that I'll cut to the truth, but really I hope they can feel the love and care, because when you're going for what you really want and when you're afraid that you're not enough, which is every human being, that's when you need somebody who's really in your corner and that you can reveal the underbelly in order to really actually make your run. And that, I think, is, you know, you've done it, so you know it. You know what I'm saying.
Well, you're very kind. And what happens during a pandemic, what happens during a time of uncertainty is, I think you create need for a coach. Because you have companies that were kind of rocking and rolling. I'm thinking about the restaurant industry right now. Gosh. And they got hit with something that, they couldn't have imagined. And so they have to pivot. And sometimes there's not a playbook. You can't just pull it off the shelf and say, oh, I'll do chapter 4. So having a coach like yourself to say, okay, this is how we navigate that, that's important.
Well, I'd say for people that during times of doubt, the natural thing is to stop. And the truth is that when there's doubt, the default needs to be this is a time to learn, not a time to stop. And in that moment, that's when you really need to reach out to say, you know, hey, it's not intuitive always and it's not easy all the time, but I will tell you that I believe right now during this pandemic, when not only the things that are obviously changing, but a lot of the things that are shifting underneath that will come out over the next few years, be a part of powerful tribes, get close to people who have wisdom, and allow yourself to become the VIP, someone whom you are willing to pour into so that you have insight and you're prepared. I've said over the last year that I find there's two kinds of people, some who have said I'm too overwhelmed to even think about anything new, and then there's those of us who are feeling like, hey, I better skill up, because I'm not sure everything that I need, but I know that I need to prepare for a new place that the world is going, and that's when I hope people will call you or me.
Well, I hope people visit your website because you have these beautiful packages, and one of them I want to talk about as we put it on the screen is taking on the mantle of leadership. And to me, you have a bunch of people out there who have been suddenly promoted. I mean, they were a rock star in whatever role they had, and they're promoted into leader. Yeah. And they're really not prepared. They don't have the equipment to lead others. They may be good at what they do, but they don't know how to inspire others. Speak to that, please.
Well, managing is completely different, which is what most of us are taught. It's totally different than leading, which is really inspiring people to do their own journey. I was trying to tell people that I'm not your teacher, I'm your guide, and that your actions are your teacher. And so, you know, your willingness to come close and understand the difference between a manager and someone who is saying, let me bring out your best, let me release and liberate your greatness, and trust me to push you in the right ways and also be behind you in the right ways. So that's a whole different deal from management.
Yeah, and a key thing I keep hearing is you don't want to be a manager, you want to be a mentor. And there's a difference, right? The manager is the person, hey, have you done your work? And the mentor is like, hey, let me help you through this sticking point.
Exactly, and one of the things that is also when we were talking about, you know, telling the truth to people, you wouldn't want to, if you were in the Olympics, you wouldn't want your coach to be going, you're doing great, you're doing awesome, and then you get to the competitors and you get like a 2, and they're like, and I thought you said I was great. You know, when I say taking on the mantle of leadership, a lot of it is learning to tell the truth. You know, which is there's depths to that about really maturing and developing skills that you may not have, and letting somebody say, hey, on the scale of where you want to go, you're here, which is not a bad thing. This is a whole other door, because a lot of what people have is an impatience with the process of excellence, and with every generation it becomes more. And I find that right now people are impatient in their judgment. I keep trying to say, listen, let's go hard on the plan and easy on yourself, because it's not going to work. You're not going to flog yourself to excellence. It's not going to work.
Right. And one of the things I'll say about Artemis is that she's walked her talk. I mean, there's a lot of consultants out there who have never run a business. So they're giving you advice and they've never actually lived it. You've led some very large teams. What's the largest team you've ever led?
Well, I went into direct sales. That was one of the first businesses that I did, and so I ended up building a business all over the world. And in that, people in other companies and other teams started asking me to say, will you share some of what you have taught? And so I've helped other leaders to be able to be willing to understand. I think people need help and attention, when in fact the thing I've learned over the years is people need challenge more than they need help. And that was one of my first 2 years lessons as an entrepreneur. I tried to help people to their strength, and the truth is they need to be challenged to their strength, and those are two different parts of me. So I got my water wings after a few years and went, oh, okay, I get it. I'm more of a football coach. I'll tuck and roll in front of you, but I won't take the fall for you. I'll teach you how to tuck and roll. So we're almost out of time, but I want to give you a chance to, you shared a quote with me about an ostrich, and I want you to share that. Well, a mentor of mine years ago in 2000 said, kind of in a joke but in a serious way, she said, listen, you know, when the wind is strong enough, even an ostrich can fly. And I was always the one laughing, and the strongest in the back of the room. But she said, when it's difficult, when the winds have changed, even strong professionals struggle to thrive. And I would say that right now the uncertainty for people is high, and the shifts are deep. And it can be painful because it's like inching away in some places like retail, or even a lot of things like insurance and other things where you can see that online business. So I've been trying to share with people that we used to take people from the farm to the factory, so to speak, but in the next 5 to 10 years, we're taking people to where automation and online business is replacing you. Not that you don't have places to go, but it's a place you need to learn to chart. And it's scary to say, okay, they're not taking me from here to there. They're saying to me, we're dropping you off, we don't need you anymore, which means, hey, what's coming from within you? And that, I think, is this next era that we're moving into, which is why I said to you, I think you're only at the tipping point of the preparation you did and the work that you're doing here. Artemis, I could talk to you all day. You're amazing. We're going to end by putting up your website. ArtemisLimpert.com is the website. Go check her out, her social media. She gives great tips. And please engage her if you need help getting to that next level. Thank you for having me. This has been delightful. Thank you, Jeff. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.